Welcome to Jets This Week. I'm Gary Lawless. This is Paul Wiecek. Those guys behind us are the Winnipeg Jets, and they are playing the New York Rangers later Friday night. Heading into the game, they are 5 points out of a playoff spot. They have 15 games left on the schedule. 12 of those games will come against playoff teams, and I believe 9 of those games will come against teams that are top 10 NHL teams. They've got to go to LA, they've got to play the Sharks in San Jose, they got to play the Ducks, they got to play the Penguins, they got to play the Bruins. All this suggests that it's going to be a tough task for them to move up those 5 points and to get in the playoffs. That being said, the games are meaningful for a number of ways. Paul Wiecek, what do you see happening for the Jets the rest of the way, and what can be gained from this if it's not a playoff spot?
Well, let me be the glass half full guy.
There you go. Nice.
And that's not often I have that role, as you know, Gary. How about instead of them being on a 5-game losing streak right now, how about they're winless in the last 5? They've picked up 3 points along the way. They're not that far off, I don't think, from that 11-3-1 team that came out of the gate after Paul Maurice took over for Claude Noel. Clearly, this is a skid that has cost them. Clearly, this is an uphill battle to get in the playoffs. But you know what? Let's suppose they go 11-3-1 in their final 15. Are they in the playoff conversation at least in the last week to 10 days? Maybe. But the bottom line is, if you're in a hole, you got to stop digging. This team needs to start winning. They need to start winning right now. They got the Rangers tonight. They got a monster game against Dallas on Sunday. I'm in St. Louis with them on Monday, and then they got Colorado here next Wednesday. They need at least 6 out of 8 points here. They need to get themselves back in that conversation. And so while I understand everybody wants to write them off as a playoff team, I think in the same way they turned that light switch on when Paul Maurice took over, I think they can turn it back on. Blake Wheeler needs to start scoring. Evander Kane needs to start scoring. If either of those two guys have been scoring in the last 5 games, they win a bunch of those games, right? But both those guys in really bad droughts right now.
Well, this is the question. Evander Kane is 10 without a goal, and I believe Blake Wheeler is 5 without a goal. If they don't turn it around and go back to that early Mo magic or momentum, as we were calling it when Paul Maurice first arrived, what does that tell us about the Winnipeg Jets as a whole? I've got a package in Friday's paper looking at them from the bottom up in terms of organizational depth. But what about the NHL roster? If they don't get in, and if they don't go back to that hot streak that they had when Paul Maurice first arrived, what do we know about the Winnipeg Jets in terms of the NHL team, and what does Kevin Shovel-Dayoff have to do with them to get them, the NHL portion of this franchise, to the next step?
Yeah, and that's an interesting question. And, I hearken back to when they turned things around so dramatically after Paul Maurice took over. There never really was, to me, a satisfactory answer for why that happened. They talked about a new attitude, there was renewed confidence, there was all that. Clearly, that team had quit on Claude Noel, I think. But there was never really a very good answer for how come all of a sudden you're world beaters, how come all of a sudden you're 11-3-1. And I think as you look at how dramatically it's turned around the other way now in the last 5 games, there isn't a very satisfactory answer for that. So somewhere in between those two poles is the actual Winnipeg Jets. We got 15 games to see which pole they're going to gravitate towards as the season ends.
When Claude Noel was fired, and he had to be fired at the time, there was no other choice for the organization. I argued at the time that it was still more about the players than it is about the coach, and we're seeing that again now, and it'll always be like that in the NHL. The coach is one man, he does certain things, makes certain decisions, but the players are the ones that lace up the skates and hold the sticks, and they determine in the end how they play and whether they win or lose. It'll be fun either way to watch. This is Gary Lawless, this is Paul Wiecek, this is Jets This Week.